So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm very happy that the room is quite full now. So I'm taking you now to Pagan, as it was just said. Some of you might know Pagan. It's quite a famous site in the center of Burma. It's the largest Buddhist site in Asia, more than 40 square kilometers. Pagan is a city which was the capital of the Burmese, starting from the 10th, but mainly from the 11th up to the 14th century. During this period, 11th up to 14th century, nearly 3,000 monuments were built. Many of them survived. The site was all the time inhabited, but again there was a revival in construction in the 18th century, but I'm not only here interested by the early period, the so-called Pagan period, where the city was the capital of the Burmese. It's built along the Irrawaddy on the left bank, and you have here a view of this river, which is very wide, especially in the season of the monsoon, which is coming. The site is still inhabited. You have villagers who are eventually fishermen, like you see on this screen. You see also already in the back some monuments which are really built on the bank. You have a view on the back of the river again. Here monuments from different periods. This is a monument in wood, which is a monastery, a place where monks are living. The other monuments are all temples or stupa, meaning this depiction, a remembrance of the dead Buddha, but also of his word, which is the stupa, for those who don't know, is a monument which is circular, which is completely closed, and which is worshipped while turning around. And the first 8 stupas were the monument where ashes of the Buddha were hidden inside. So another aspect of the site where you see it's still inhabited, you have here cows. Monuments are built in bricks. They have been massively restored in the last 20 years. And here I really come to the topic of the lecture with the position of Pagan. As you see, Pagan is here and is really at the center of an international network at that time, 11th to early 14th century. Pagan had first relation with India, which is nearby, and we will see in a moment why. The relation with India was a religious relation, mainly based on Buddhism. Major relation with the Yuan of Dadu, and yesterday we had already a glimpse on the art of the Yuan in Dadu with the talk of Jane Casey. Dadu was the capital of the Yuan. They had political, trade relationship, and sometimes also military conflicts. And then you had another type of relation with monks coming from Cambodia or from Sri Lanka in Pagan. All this took place in Pagan. The first relation is just, and there's a first part of the title of the lecture, Pagan and India. Pagan and Bodh Gaya. Bodh Gaya is the place where Shakyamuni became a Buddha. Buddha means awakened, enlightened. And Bodh Gaya draws its name from this place where the Buddha became enlightened. Here you have Bodh Gaya, which was and which still is today, is a major Buddhist site in all Asia and all the world. In fact, it's a place where all the pilgrims are flocking from all over the world to worship the Buddha. This is the temple which was built there. In its shape, naturally, it's a heavy restoration of the 19th century made by the British, but we have depiction showing that it was like that already at an earlier period. The site and the region were left by the Buddhists practically after 1200, when the Muslim came and when the country, the political powers disintegrated, and all the monks left. All the Tibetan monks left for Tibet. It was a major Tibetan site. Also, Tibetans were coming in mass. Really huge amount of Tibetan came in this region of India at that time. And here you have a copy of this temple, which was built in the first part of the 13th century in Pagan. At the time where it was just no more possible to go there, but where the kings of Pagan felt that they were those who had to go on with the Dharma, with defense of the Buddhist law, and where they had to be a kind of new Bodh Gaya, so to say. The Burmese went very often to Bodh Gaya. There were embassies sent by the king, and they brought money, and they restored also very heavily the temple from the 11th to the 13th century, and they left traces like here, a golden bell with a Burmese inscription, and here another Burmese inscription which was found in Bodh Gaya. So here you have these two temples, the original one and the copy in Pagan. where it is called Mahabodhi, which means the Great Enlightenment. So this is another view on the left side of this Mahabodhi Temple in Pagan. And how was this model of the Mahabodhi Temple brought from India abroad? Well, through such small images, they can be 10, they can be 30 centimeters, they are made of stone, and they are copies, so to say, from the main temple in Bodh Gaya. Some others, much larger, made of wood, were transported in Tibet. And this is what a scholar named the Holy Land transported, because it's really Bodh Gaya which was carried away. So the influence, the contact with Bihar, with India, was mainly the Mahabodhi Temple, but not only. There's another phenomenon which takes place in the field of architecture in Pagan. When you go to Pagan, you are always struck by the fact that you see many of these temples or stupa, which are like mountains arising out of the landscape. Well, all through Southeast Asia developed the worship of the so-called temple mountain. You have the huge example in Angkor, another major example in Java with the Borobudur. The concept comes from India again, and the monument on which I want to draw your attention now is, so this temple mountain, as I just said, just can also be the stupa, which I was mentioning. You have here a stupa on a very high basis where you could climb. It's like in the Borobudur, in fact, where you have also these stairs at the middle of each face. You have these huge stupas which evoke the mountain, but the major temple which illustrates this feature in Pagan is the so-called Ananda Temple. It's a royal temple. The major earlier temple of Pagan were all built by kings. The Ananda is one of them, built around 1100. So it's a temple. You go inside, in fact. You have here a tower, but you will go inside, and I'll show you the ground plan in a moment. The inspiration for this temple is in Bengal, more particularly in the delta of the Ganges, which means Bangladesh today. There are only ruins. Nothing remained as it is in Pagan. But you have in North Bangladesh what the largest remain of this kind of temple in Paharpur. The name is here, not very visible, but Paharpur, which was a huge construction of bricks also, which took also this shape of the temple mountain. Here you can compare the ground plan of what was Paharpur and a photo from Ananda. You have to forget this kind of galleries which are built in the 18th century. You just concentrate on the center. You have this Greek cross ground plan which you found at Paharpur already. Paharpur is a temple of the 8th century. And Paharpur is not the only one in Bangladesh. You have also another structure in southeast Bangladesh, but Paharpur is really the one which is the best preserved. So this kind of concept and ground plans comes also from South Asian, meaning India in the large sense. You can here compare again this concept of a temple mountain, again the Ananda Temple here, which has its towers which are gilded, and here a stupa on the first plan. So the temple, the stupa, even if the stupa is a monument which is completely closed, it's considered to be the body of the Buddha, which means also the house of the Buddha. And when you see this stupa here, the next picture shows you a detail of this niche where you have a Buddha who is depicted. The Buddha is the main object of cult. It's the deity, the god of the site. It is depicted also in every monument, every temple. Is always, apart from, of course, you can never say never, or you can never say always. But let's say 99.9% of the images of the Buddha within a temple depicts him as he is here, which means seated in the so-called lotus position and touching the earth with his right hand. I don't know if you maybe not know about the Buddhist iconography, but this in fact refers to the moment where Shakyamuni was meditating, was disturbed in this meditation by Mara, who was sending his daughters to trouble him, to seduce him, or send his army to disturb him in his meditation. And at a certain moment, the Buddha said, no, it's, well, he did not say it the way I'm going to say it, but he said, no, it's enough. I have the power, I may become a Buddha, enlightened, and he touches the air, the earth, asking for someone who would come to testify that he is really in the ability of becoming a Buddha. And touching the earth, in fact, it's the earth goddess who appeared and said, yes, this man can become a Buddha. Why the earth goddess? Because the earth goddess is there from eternity, and she has always been the testimony during all the previous, and he had 550 previous lives. So she was always there to see how this man developed his spiritual karma, his spirituality. So she is really the one who followed him during all this existence. So this is the picture which is the most depicted in Eastern India at that time, and this is the one which the artists and the monks of Pagan will retain, which is not the case in all Buddhist countries. Now, our Buddha was not only a monk, he was also felt as a supreme being, and as such he could be adorned with jewel. The artists of Pagan imported also, or the monks imported the concept of the bejeweled Buddha from Eastern India. You have here one example in this temple, Ananda, which we saw a few moments ago. And this is an example on the right side of a stone image from Eastern India, and you see that it's really the model is in Eastern India. You have there this image of stone on the left side, which is completely gilded, showing that it's still worshipped today. It's a major image in the compound of the Ananda. We are here in Eastern India just to show you that it's really a major topic in Eastern India, the crowned Buddha, or the bejeweled Buddha as it's called. And the topic is not only to have the crowned Buddha, but to have also a kind of symbolic way of depiction of the life of the Buddha. What you have here around, and which will be inherited by Pagan also, we will see, are in fact depiction of moments of his life. Altogether, you have 8 moments. Some are, I don't tell the life of the Buddha, it's not the place, but some can be recognized. This is the final disease of the Buddha, is lying, and this is another one which is very easily recognized. You see there a lady. It's in fact Maya, the mother of the Buddha, who delivers a child, and the child was born miraculously from the right side of the queen. So this topic, the crowned Buddha, the topic of the life around, are major in Eastern India and will be inherited in Pagan. But interestingly enough, and I did not mention it so far, all these temples in Pagan, and this is what made the fame of Pagan, not only the architecture, but what you find inside when you go. And when you find inside, these are murals. The walls are painted. They are painted with images of the Buddha, life of the Buddha, and with also many very rich decorative ornamentation. Very interesting, the crowned Buddha is very really represented in fact in the murals. You have here 2 examples where he has a crown, but you see it's always the same position. But at the end of the Pagan period, from the 13th century, we have quite a large number of wooden sculpture showing this crowned Buddha, and it's always in the same position as you can see. So this is a development which takes place in Pagan, starting from the beginning, where you have seen at the Ananda, he is showing the gesture of enlightenment. The main image is not to have him crowned, it's to have him depicted as a monk, meaning no jewels, just the dress of the monk, as the monks are wearing still today. This is again based on models coming from India. Jagdishpur is near Nalanda. Nalanda was a major university in Bihar, in Eastern India, which is well known from the Tibetan sources and from also Javanese sources. And near Nalanda, it's really in the so-called suburbs of the site, which is a huge archaeological site. You have a small temple which this image, which is more than 3 meters high, is the largest surviving stone image of the Buddha with a depiction, full depiction of his life around him, which it is really a model for a number of other images which have been carved, all of them in Nalanda. Here 2 other examples. It's always the same model, pattern as you see. In the center is depicted calling the earth, and you have all around his life Now, the image which you just saw are quite tall images, 50, 60, 70 centimeters. But at the same time, one started to produce smaller images from 15 to 20 centimeters, just like the small copies of the Mahabodhi Temple, which you just saw some minutes ago. These images here are not more than 20, 25 centimeters, 8. They were carved in India, but this one was found in Sri Lanka, and this is found in the Potala in Tibet, which shows you that these small images were also carried away by the monks. They were carried also to Pagan. Here 2 examples from Pagan, one in the Archaeological Museum, one found in Pagan, but now in a private collections. I don't know where it is, but it was on the market 2 years ago. Again, Indian objects which were exported in Pagan. 2 other examples. Once again, I don't enter into detail why I say it's Indian. I mean, when one knows when it's another topic, it's a very detailed topic which has to deal with the quality of the carving. This image in the Victoria and Albert Museum is from India. This is again an image from Pagan, produced in Pagan. And then, of course, you have what is in the murals. You have this iconography, the Buddha showing this gesture, calling the earth, and his life all around it. This is in the Lobe Temple, which is a small temple just south of the city of Pagan. And the Burmese elements in this iconography introduced from India is the presence of the 2 monks. These are the 2 closest monks to the Buddha. They are always present in the temples of Pagan. Now, when we look shortly at what has also come from India at the end of the 11th and in the first part of the 12th century, we have to look. In India, unfortunately, murals have completely disappeared from temples in eastern India because the temples were built in bricks. They were abandoned around 1200, as I say. They fell into this decay. They were looted. The bricks were used for building halls by the village people. I mean, there was nothing left. Only in Nalanda, in the temple, traces, and also only in the fact that in Tibetan sources they mention murals. So we know that the temples in India were also adorned with murals in this part of the subcontinent. But what we have from eastern India, and as some among you must know, these are the manuscripts, the Buddhist palm leaves. You have an example on the left side, which is a detailed. They are long, like that, and they are not more than 7 centimeters in 8. So this is a very small painting, and you can compare it in the composition with these murals in the Lobe Temple. Also the way he has here this knob on the head, this pointed knob, the way the monks are seated with their nimbus, which is wide and elongated, the composition with the cushion, everything reminds here in Lobe Temple what was made at the same time, practically the same time in India. Another example, it's from the same manuscript, just seen in the previous slides, and again some more murals in another Pagan temple, where you can also compare the compositions. It's the same when you look at the profile of these 2 Buddhas here and the profile of this one. They are really identical. But this was really the early period, end of 11th, early 12th century. Just like this example here. This is a typical face from this period, as you see it in India. But what happened when you look at a picture from a painting, which is in the temple built in 1255. There you can really see the difference. You can see what happens in the meantime. This is really what we call Burmese. I mean, the face is much larger, much round. The knob is not more pointed, but circular and flat. The face is really going down in the neck, and it's called, some scholars call it a short-necked Buddha. The line of the hair has always these small points, tip here falling down in India. Here you have just a circular line. So you see there is a transformation. This model, the Indian model, disappears in the second part of the 12th century, in fact. This short-necked Buddha you see everywhere from the 13th century in the temple images or also in small carving. You have here a very good example. It's a small image in the V&A in London where you have really, the neck is completely hidden in fact. And seen from the profile, you really see that the face is really, I can't do it, but it's really going in front and down in front of the neck. Now, how can we explain this development? This is an image which is early. I mean, end of 11th, 12th century. It doesn't have this face falling and round, circular. But what you see is the way these images were made in Pagan, and it helps to understand how this development took place. These images are built in bricks. They are not carved. There's no stone, it's bricks. You can see that it has been very much damaged, but it's why I show it to you, because you see how it's done. It's just an assemblage from bricks. Then it's stuccoed, and it was then painted. And this explains how this is really a construction which had to be massive because quite heavy. And I think this is how it explains that you don't have anymore this light neck, which has to bear a very heavy head, which is possible with stone, which is probably most difficult with bricks. The danger is that it breaks very quickly. Now we have to go for this so-called short-necked Buddha. We can have a look at Karakoto. Karakoto was on the map, but I did not mention it. We will see it again. Where is Karakoto? Karakoto is in Central Asia. Karakoto is a major Yuan site with a huge collection of tankas and items which have been recovered by the Russian, and the collection is now in the Hermitage in St. Petersburg. And among the tankas, you have these tankas with a Buddha, which has really this short-necked face. We see it again in a second, but I just want first to take you in another 13th century temple, and then when you compare with this tanka, you can really see the similarities. You see that the bump on the head is circular, round, the face is very round, also the sole of the feet is very flat and is red colored. The hand also is very flat. The shoulders are really falling. In India, they are more square. It is more depicting, like the text say, the body should be like the body of a bull. But in Burma, it has really falling shoulders. So we see that there is an impact also on the art of the tanka, which we have found outside Burma. Here, two other examples show you this kind of, this type of short-necked Buddha, very typical in the murals of the site. And here, very strange small images, which I'm really sure it would appear on the market today. One would have thought and would say, no, it's not, it can't be. But it was hidden and closed in a treasure, which was closed in the 12th century in Delhi. So it's an interesting item. It's a rock crystal. It's made in Burma, and it was there considered to be holy enough to be kept in this treasure in Delhi. Now I'm going to show you a number of features which show the connections with the great neighbor, meaning China, and mainly meaning the Yuan. There is a number of bronzes or cast image, let's say, from the Sino-Tibetan, Himalayan, I mean, scholars debates where was it made, image, like the one on the right screen. And in the middle of the cushion on which the Buddha sits, there is a lion face, which appears in one case. I only trace it once in Burma. You have here, for those who are here in the front, you can see it properly. You have here really a lion, the face of the lion with his two first legs here. Here you're just a monstrous face, in fact. And this would be, for me, more impact coming from the north on in this particular temple. Here I show you two further examples of such cast image with monstrous or lion face, with images which again are very much debated as to where were they made. But this shows, at least through the murals in Pagan, that Pagan was connected to a network where this motif was known. Now, apart from this so-called iconography ornamentation, the murals are extremely rich in floral, in decorative ornamentation. And this is very important. It is usually neglected, but this is in fact the place where painters could really do what they wanted practically, because the iconography is really rule, and they have to follow the rule from the text, from what the monk says, from what the devotees wanted to have in his temple, for which he gave money, and so on. Well, the first temple from the first period shows this kind of scrolls. You have a scroll which is running with large round circles. The space is completely filled. This is Indian scrolls. They are like that in India. And then when you go at the end of second half of the 10th, 12th century or 13th, then you have a scroll which is completely different. You have, of course, this very thick line, but you see that the background is very clearly delineated. It's very geometric, and now we will detail these two kinds of ornamentation. The scroll from India. This is a huge depiction of a it's a huge bronze image. And here you see that these scrolls are here depicted in different metals, in fact, filled with animals. Here a monkey, there you have a goose. This is typical India. This you have in India. And this shows that these were also decoration which was used for garments, which is an important feature we will see in a moment. The main similar scrolls on book covers of Indian manuscripts. You see you have this regular circular which runs into each another, filled with animals or beings. Again, the same kind of scroll really filling the space. The Indian artist doesn't like empty space. It has to be completely filled. And you have similar small scrolls here on the cushion or the nimbus behind the Buddha's head. Now, when we look at the later period in Pagan, we have a completely different rendering of this ornamentation. And this is called what Chinese art historian call spiked lobe leaf. It's not Indian at all, but what you see, this is a detail, this is a ceiling paint. You see that it's really very much geometric, it's very well organized, very clear. You have a clear white line, and you have this is what they call a spiked lobed leaf, which does not refer probably to a real plant, but it's a very decorative element, which you find here. Another example, another detail from another temple. This is what you have. And where do you find it? Where do you trace the origin? Where is it? Well, we are here back with the Yuan, whom we mentioned yesterday. We have in Pagan, unfortunately, there are since a number of years, 20 years maximum, excavations are made in these sites. For many years, the site has been neglected. Only the architecture and the murals were considered, and nothing was considered was all around. But making excavations, remains of blue-white potteries have been discovered, for instance. So this shows that there was an import of blue-white pottery from China. Here you have a detail from these murals. Here, again, you have this special leaf, which you have here. These are two details from the pottery which you saw in the previous slides. You have it here, you have it there. You have the round leaf, which is also appearing in Pagan, which is also taken from, which is also inspired most probably from these Yuan models. And this shows, it's not Pagan, it's North Thailand, but if I show it to you, it's because really it shows that there was a huge impact of the Yuan, the blue and white and the Yuan pottery on all the region, because you have here also this kind of leaves. Another element which was most probably influenced by, from an aesthetic point of view from China, is what I call the Monochroma Style. You have these paintings which are white on dark red or white on black. And this, I suspect that somehow they must have imported also such kind of pottery from China, because we don't have it before. It suddenly appears in the 13th century, it's there. Another element coming from the north, from the big neighbor, as I call them, the clouds. Here again a detail from murals, where you have here clouds which are depicted. And you can have a look for comparison. Again, I went to Karakoto, where you have here a detail from a character standing on clouds. This then gives way to such fantastic ceiling. If you compare this kind of treatment of what I think is a cloud with what was imported 200 years before from India. Here you have again this manuscript from the Asia Society, which is properly dated. I did not mention it, but it's properly dated. Where you see what is a cloud. You have divine beings and they are flying on the cloud. The cloud is like a shape around. And how it's imported in Pagan, you have the divine characters flying with the shape of the clouds. This survive. Sometimes you just have simple white line. So this is very, very different from what I suspect to be the Chinese cloud imported at a later period. Another element which appears in the 13th century is these polylobed frames. Again, no connections with India. It appears on ceiling. This is a ceiling in a small circular temple. And you have here a Buddha, who is isolated somehow from the frame through this polylobed frame. Or you can have this polylobed frame at the bottom of door frames or frames around windows with a fantastic character who acts as a protector of the entrance. So where from, again, this frame? Well, again, we go back to the Yuan blue and white pottery. I mean, the Yuan might have taken it from somewhere else, but important for Pagan, it's that this is really the closest possible source of origin. This is this kind of lobes, which you have very commonly that you meet very often on this pottery. So again, come back shortly to the floral background. Here you have an example. This floral background is a dominant element in the, let's say, the decorative ornamentation of the site, filling the space. And at the later period, again, we see that just like we had some with very geometric construction, you can have some where the line of the scrolls, which originated from India, remember these circular scrolls which turn one into the other, that's really coming from India, like, you know, the presence of animals, which we saw also in India. But my question was, how did they come to know that? I mean, not only manuscript, because we did not find any manuscripts from India in Burma. I mean, with the ornamentation, they were found mainly in Tibet, in fact. So, well, the tanka, which was on the left side from Karakoto, is a cloth, it's a garment painting. And I suspect that such ornaments were also introduced in Pagan through garments. Another example showing that this decorative ornamentation can be introduced in Pagan from garments which were imported is seen in the early period. When you look at the connection with India, going back to India, here you have a temple which is very well dated, 1113. And here you have, again, a Buddhist manuscript. So again, I repeat, it's very, in 7-8 centimeters, and it can be up to 50 centimeters in breadth. These are the space and all the, you must imagine all the folios put together, and you have holes which were made with a rope passing through to keep all together the folios. So the space where these holes were made and the ropes were passing are very properly adorned with very geometric pattern, which are similar to those which one finds when they are worn by, which we see on the garments, worn by this devotee of the Buddha in an early period. It's practically contemporary, as you can see from the date. This manuscript is also very well dated. The fact is that we know from inscription in Pagan that they imported cotton from India and that they imported silk from China. So I really suspect that this type of ornamentation was introduced in the site with garments. Here again I show you this huge Bodhisattva bronze, which has really addressed also this one. You don't see it properly, but the Charles also has such scrolls. Well, here's a detail where you see animals. So it was really a part, I mean, of rich on garments to have such scrolls. And when you look at some, I mean, one has to go really very much in detail in some murals, you see that the elements like the cushion behind the Buddha here or the skirt here really represent this kind of blue, white on black, or scrolls which you meet either in India or either you meet in China. So this is, I think, really the element to show that they really, the painters draw a number of their inspiration where they could be free there to act as they wanted. They did not have to follow what the monks were telling them to do. These are some details from murals which are on ceiling. And I mentioned here intercentric circles and polylobes. They are here. You see circles which cross each other. Or you have these circular polylobes here. And again, there is a very strong connection with Dadu, the capital of the Yuan. The four-lobed is, for instance, which you see here in the murals, is encountered on a slab, stone slabs, here with phoenix, which were found in Dadu. So this, because you don't have that also in India, you don't have it before. Now this here, if you just keep in your eyes for just a short moment of time, I'm changing the slide, this here on the right, this is in fact, this was this one, which is here, but you see that it's in the middle of a slab where you have these circles which are intersecting. Again, you have there a direct connection. And I repeat, we know that there was an embassy coming from Pagan going to the Yuan court, and that they came back with a number of monks and also military forces, of course. So this really, there was really from the political point of view, from the trade point of view, and artistic point of view, you see there were really very strong connections. And then we reach, I mean, really, these monks, these Chinese, did they come to Pagan? This is a very, very delicate point. When you speak with Burmese people, they will jump at the ceiling and they will tell you, no, never. But we have to accept also the evidence. I'm taking you now to a temple where we have already been, but which is a Tambula Temple. This is a temple, I show you, the next slide you will see the ground plan. The photo here is made from here. It's a temple which has 4 entrances. This is the main entrance, and then you have 3 entrances in the back. In the middle, you have the square with 4 images, in fact, of the Buddha. So you are here, looking at this Buddha. So you were here, looking here. When the photo was made, the previous photo in the 90s, this was not yet there. This has been built in the recent years, probably for protecting the monuments from animals. So, and I want to draw your attention, I'll show you details, to this frame here. So this is the frame which is just here. The Buddha which we saw is there, and this we see the frame. The normal frame of a window or of an entrance is to have this floral motif and flying divine characters. Eventually 2 characters standing protecting the entrance or the window. This is the typical, classical model. But what you have here in the Tambula is something completely different. You have, in fact, human beings who are not Burmese, who are not Indian. They are really foreigners, and we are going to see them in a moment. Here they are. Yes, they are completely different from what we see. They are fully dressed, very heavily dressed. They have a hair dress, which is the way of tying the hair atop the head, which is completely uncommon, never seen in Pagan. Look also at their face. They are very strange. When I really to look, they are, you have the feeling, you think that they have big teeth, but in fact, no. They have beard, how would you say, mustache, a mustache, which is falling. And you see here the detail, and I bring them, I told myself, they are not Burmese. Burmese don't have beard. They are not Indian. We will see in a moment how the fashion was in India and Burma in the 11th, 12th century. They never have anyway this way of wearing the hair. So again, I had to look in China. And I just found this kind of practically contemporary characters. And the next slides will show you how is the typical Burmese or Indian way of having the beard. You have a moustache à la Salvador Dali. Someone told me once it's like Salvador Dali. It's true. You see that it's really very thin and very horizontal. And when they have a beard, it's really a pointed beard. And they have their hair falling in the back or making a bun at the back of the head. So this is completely different language. And you see here they are very heavily dressed also. This is always from the same frame. You see this very heavy dress with folds. These characters are not unique to the Tambula, where they really frame this entrance. They are found in a very small monuments also there where they worship the Buddha. And I show you in detail, in the next slides, the detail of these two groups. So here you have a rare depiction of the crown Buddha in the murals, in fact. And here they are again. And again with this very strange way of showing the mouth. But one has to think, of course, in terms of the painter who has never depicted such characters. And so it's really a completely different being for him. This is the Burmese or Indian face. And here on this, in this case, you have these characters who have another very strange headdress. You see, again, the Burmese painters must have seen some other people, not coming from India. I think that the inspiration must be some kind of hat worn by foreigners who had come. Someone suggested to me they might be Tibetan. But there is no proof that Tibetan had relation with Pagan, but there is really proof that Chinese had, Yuan, Mongols had connection with. And again, you find in these Chinese paintings, they are all very heavily dressed people. Again, these two examples here are from Tankas, from Karakoto. And you find also in Central Asia, in the murals of Bautze-Picron, this example of monks very heavily dressed. So I think they have seen people from outside, not from India, because you don't dress like that very heavily in India. It's impossible. It's also not the case of monks who came from Cambodia or monks from Burma. So I really think they must have come from Central Asia, but Central Asia was part of the Yuan Empire. No, the Mongols were there, in fact. In Pagan, you have monuments which has murals which are not of good quality, I must say. This is one of the last monuments of this period. It's not a temple, it was most probably a place. Here we have the ground plan, this is a courtyard, and this was probably a monument with rooms we don't have any light, it's complete darkness, which are used probably for meditation, which is a possibility. And in the corridors here on the walls you have murals, which again I repeat are not of the very good quality, from the aesthetic point of view, but they are interesting for what they depict. They don't depict also, most of them don't depict a religious topic, but apparently elements, things that the people who were in this case, maybe they were not professional painters because again of the level of the quality, but things which the people have seen. And this is in fact, they are also, I must say, in a very bad conditions. You have here hunters with his bow. Here you see in a moment a drawing from this man made 90 years ago where they were in better condition. And they have, as you see, a very strange head, which is flat, with just a small bump at the middle, and which reminded me of this kind of headdress, which was shown in exhibition in the Metropolitan Museum on the Yuan period. So these are two drawings which were made and published in the Archaeological Survey of India report 90 years ago, and which shows them in better quality. So you see that they were wearing boots also, which is also completely atypical for the site. You can't wear boots in China, but in Burma or in India. It's much too warm. They are fully dressed. They have also this kind of pattern on their dress, and they have this headdress. Here again, you have a detail from a portrait of one of the Yuan king, showing again this kind of hats, which appears only in these murals from these small monuments. Now looking again at the map, we can again put, so in geography, all these various sites. The major one was, I said at the beginning, was Bodh Gaya, from where the iconographic, the religious inspiration was drawn. Most probably also, as the temple from the late 11th, early 12th century shows, I really think that, in fact, artists, painters came from India and created the atelier, because before that period you don't have murals in Burma. So the kings, who was very much interested in drawing the heritage from India to his place, I really think had artists coming, and they created the ateliers in Pagan. This is a small seal with a Nagari inscription mentioning Bodh Gaya, coming from Bodh Gaya. This was found again in the Dali treasure, which is around this area in China. And then you have this small image, which is one of these images which were 20 centimeters, I say, very small, which were mainly produced in India, at later period in Burma. This one was most probably produced in India, but it has a long history because it has a Chinese inscription on its back. So you see that all these areas, in fact, starting from Bodh Gaya up to Burma, and then from Burma again it radiated towards China. This was really a very intensive major Buddhist network with a center in Pagan. As you can see on the map. Also, I remind you that there was also connections with Sri Lanka and connections with Cambodia. Monks came from this region in Pagan. Karakoto, Central Asia, which I mentioned that more than one time, is located very much in the north, as you see, but Dadu is also very much in the north, and as I say, there were embassies going from Pagan to Dadu and coming back with Chinese soldiers and monks. And this is Dali, where you had this small crystal rock Buddha from Burma, or the seal from Bodh Gaya, which were found in the treasure. So this was Pagan between India and China. I hope that I was not too heavy, but it shows that really Pagan was a very, very interesting. It's not only Pagan, the architecture, which doesn't move. It was really an open place, and the kings which fostered this development were very much aware that they were really those who had to sustain and support the Dharma after Bodh Gaya disappeared. And with this young monk going with much force and strength on his way, I wish you a good evening. Thank you.